My name is Reverend Ben Jameson. I am thrilled to serve as your associate minister here at CSL in Fort Lauderdale. We have 7 core values that guide everything we do here. Those 7 are love, healing, oneness, abundance, spiritual growth, service, and diversity. This week, we're focusing on spiritual growth. You know, when I first re-engaged in my own spiritual practice many, many years ago, the minister said early on, if you really want your life to change, jump into a class. And so I jumped into a class, and my life changed. I can't tell you specifically what changed about it. I just felt better, and I was hooked. I took the next class and the next class and the next class, and not only did the way I feel about my life changed, but the entire direction of my life changed, such that I have the honor of standing up here with you today. You know, something happens when we engage deeply in our own spiritual practice, when we make that deeper commitment to ourselves to jump into the class, to put more of our time, attention, effort, and resources on our spiritual growth. Our subconscious mind sees that and says, ooh, this is important. Let's open up. Let's learn. Let's grow. You know, Dr. Chris and I have spent several weeks recently building out an entire year's worth of classes, both accredited and non-accredited, so that you have many opportunities to jump into a class. And in fact, you have that opportunity right now. Last Monday, we started the first class of a foundations class. This Monday, class 2, is the last opportunity to jump into that class. It also happens to be the first of the accredited classes that open up all of the rest of those to you. I was talking to somebody earlier today who said, you know, even after just class 1, I'm feeling the shift. So if you haven't had foundations, jump into a class. Join me. Watch your life change. If you have had foundations, you are different now than when you took it before, so jump into a class and watch your life change. Something happens when we commit to our spiritual growth at that deeper level. So jump into a class and watch your life change. Namaste.
CSL is part of a global organization with over 500 centers worldwide. We are a spiritual community that honors all religions and all faiths, and that's because we know there is no wrong way to worship, whether you're lighting a candle, repeating a mantra, or saying a prayer. We respect and we honor any way anybody uses to draw them closer to spirit and to love, and so we celebrate the diversity in religious practices with our ceremony this morning we call the Flames of Faith. The candle is lit for the Tao to honor the universal path of harmony, the natural way. The candle is lit for the shamanic traditions, honoring the belief and practices of all indigenous peoples worldwide. The candle is lit for the oldest religion the world has ever known, Hinduism, to honor the spiritual path of devotion and the variety of religious icons and deities. The candle is lit for Judaism to honor the path of sacred law. The candle is lit for Buddhism to honor the Four Noble Truths and the way of compassion. The candle is lit for Christianity to honor the Christ consciousness that lives inside of all of us. The candle is lit for Islam to honor the spiritual path of peaceful submission to the will of God. The candle is lit for the universalistic religion of Baha'i to honor the path of unity. And the candle is lit for our own path, which we call New Thought, to honor the metaphysical path and the practice of universal spiritual principles. And finally, and of course, perhaps the most important candle is lit for peace and for the peaceful acceptance of all faiths and all spiritual practices worldwide. Thank you, Reverend Cookie. I just promoted her. I call her Reverend now. I hope that you will indulge me a little bit this morning. I'm feeling the need to talk about somebody that I love that passed away this week. Her name is Evadine, and it's an unusual name for an extraordinary woman. I met her 20 years ago on a Sunday when she walked through the front doors of the Center for Spiritual Living in Kansas City. I'll never forget it. She's one of those people that you notice when they come into a room. They do not enter lightly. They arrive with the full boldness of their character. I never knew Evadine's age because she never talked about her age, and I was taught that it was not polite to ask a lady's age. But you could tell by her white hair that she'd been around for a while. If you met her and you saw her for the very first time, you would say she's eccentric because she did not dress like an old lady, nor did she act her age, thank God. I don't think any of us should act our age, do you? Unless, of course, you're 13, and then you should act if you're 13. Evadine was a cross between the characters of Sally Bowles in Cabaret and Auntie Mame. She had the heart of a child and an unbridled enthusiasm for life. She wore colorful clothes and hats, and yet she didn't appear overly ornate like some women do. She carried it with elegance and grace, like a model does a runway. In fact, in her younger years, she said she had done some modeling. Evadine had many careers. In fact, I learned later she was one of those people that was a true Renaissance woman. She was a gallery owner. She was an art teacher. She was a model. And she told me one time that she was even a professional chauffeur in Chicago at one point in her life. But of course, she was an artist first. And that was the real joy of being around her because she was filled with the artist's sense of wonder in life. And so she would be my go-to person to take to art shows because she could point out things that I couldn't see because of the limitations of my left brain-centered mind. And in one show I remember we went and saw this woman who had done a self-portrait. And as we're both standing there before the painting, Evadine looks at me and she says, "Isn't it just fascinating to see how the artist has used a dark and a light color palette to communicate the differences between the shadow part of herself and that divine light that shines from within?" And I'm looking at the painting going, "What? Wait, you see all of that? I just see brown and green." It's like, you see, this is the value of diversity. Being around people who see things that you don't, who have perspectives in life that never occur to you. Evan and I became good friends over the years, and as a friend, you have a front row seat to that precarious place that we all find ourselves in human life. The day-to-day challenge of trying to maneuver your way in human life through burden and through blessing, falling down and getting back up again, and falling down and getting back up again. And one day when she fell down emotionally, she called me crying, and I said, "What's wrong? What are you upset about?" And she says, "Well, I've just come from the bank, and I feel so stupid. My account is overdrawn again." And she said, "My God, I am 60 years old, and I still cannot figure out how to balance my own checking account. I'm such an idiot." And I kind of smiled, and I said, "Oh, Evadine, don't you know by now that God created you to be an artist, not an accountant? You're never going to be good with numbers, honey. Don't try to make yourself be something you're not. Find somebody else to balance your checking account." A few weeks later, she told me that one conversation changed her entire life. Because from that day on, she stopped beating herself up for being what nature had designed her to be, an artist, not an accountant. Now, every gay person can relate to that personal day of reckoning that Evadine had, that day when you are finally true to yourself, We have jumped through the hurdles. We have faced those people who would rather see us dead than express who we are. We know the hardship of climbing our way to the top of that mountain of self-worth and shouting to the world, I am as nature has intended me to be, and to hell with anyone else who does not understand that. But you don't have to be LGBTQ to know the pressures of living in a world where divinity hits the hard road of humanity. Everybody knows it. Everybody feels it. For whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, and maybe anybody else, nature has planted us all here on this little blue marble that is spinning through space. And we enter into life divine. You know, we come into these human bodies filled with love and filled with laughter, but it's not too long before our heart gets stamped and trampled out. One poet said it correctly. We come into life as the divine and pure and perfect and beautiful spiritual beings, and yet we are trapped in these dying animal bodies. But don't despair. Our fate is not that bad. As long as you remember why you are here. You did not come here to succumb to the world's ignorance or prejudice. You did not come here to survive and suffer its misery. You are not a victim of human circumstances. You are an enlightened being, a light who has come here to bring your light to the world, a victor to overcome every single adversity you face. You are here for the same reasons we are all here, to bring heaven to earth, to merge the divine with the human. Now, it's a new month, and of course, in a new month, you know what that means? We have a new study book because we are a teaching, not a preaching. So we give you a book of the month, and this month it's called Creativity, Spirituality, and Making a Buck. I love this. And I believe there couldn't be a better guide or author to take us into that realm of heaven to earth. In this book, the author writes, heaven represents opening our minds, expanding our horizons, and envisioning possibilities. Earth represents being practical and grounded. Now, in every crowd of this size, there are always those people who are good, down-to-earth, practical-minded people. And there are some of you here who are stargazers, you know, who are completely impractical and visionary thinkers. And you know who you are and which kind of person you are by the reactions of the things that happen around you. For instance, maybe you've been in this situation in a business meeting, and the person that's leading the meeting says, you know what, let's do some pie-in-the-sky thinking. Let's imagine what would happen if we had unlimited resources. And they go to the whiteboard and they ask everybody in the room to think really big. And one person has the courage to stand up and say, you know what? Here's an idea. What if we reach out to the entire world with our product, and what if instead of charging for it, we gave it away absolutely free? Now, you can tell from that kind of situation what kind of person that person is. They are the visionary. They are not practical at all. But then someone else in the room steps up and says, we can't do that. That's ridiculous. We'll go out of business. And, of course, you know what kind of person that one is. That's the practical thinker. And as the visionary, I know what that feels like. And anyone who's a visionary knows how horrible it feels when the practical thinkers start talking. It is so deflating. It is such a downer. It's like they're trying to burst your bubble, and you want to say things to them like, oh my God, dude, you are such a buzzkill. Why are you bringing me down? Down, down, don't bring me down. Let me stay up here in the sky. And anyone who is a practical-minded person knows what it feels like to be in a room full of visionaries. It's like you're with a bunch of clowns, and they're all playing in the circus. It feels like you're the only adult in the room and nobody else is being realistic. And you say things to these people like, come on, people, really? You got to be practical. You got to come down to earth. We can't do that. But here's a new idea. What if we need them both? What if we need visionaries, people who will tell us what they see from 30,000 feet up in the air? And what if we need the impractical ones? If we need also those who are grounded and practical, the ones who can find a way to keep that plane flying up there 30,000 feet in the air, but add wheels to it so when it lands it doesn't crash, right? You get it? You get it? One isn't right and the other wrong. We need them both. Now that I am a man of a certain age, middle age. People say, oh, you're middle-aged. Only if I want to be 120 when I die. I'm not old. I am mid-century modern. And now that I've become mid-century modern, when I look back at my life, I can see things I couldn't see before when I was 30. Hindsight really is 20/20. Now I can see that the first part of life really is the age I call of discovery. When you're young or younger, you're still learning who you are. You're discovering what talents you possess that have been given to you. You've been given them by your Creator. You're working to build relationships and fall in love. Some of us build careers and wealth when we were young. Everything is new as you discover your personal likes and your personal dislikes. And then somewhere along the line, I'm not exactly sure where, as you get a little older, you pass from the age of discovery into the age that I am in now. I call this the age of acceptance. And that is where you learn to accept yourself, warts and all. You may not approve of some of your choices, past or present. You may not even like the way you behave sometimes, but you still love yourself, and you still accept yourself. It's almost as if your higher self is a voyeur, and it watches the lower self, the human. So there's this divine self, this pure and perfect self that's watching the lower self. And as you grow spiritually, you begin to identify more with that higher self because you discover that that's who you really are, not this. And when you do that, you can begin to watch your lower self do some pretty stupid things and still have compassion. You know what compassion is? It's love without judgment. So when that happens in the age of acceptance, you allow yourself and permit yourself to be any way without any judgment, any condemnation. You just accept yourself and love yourself no matter what. What I've noticed recently is that sometimes, maybe even your higher self is entertained. Mine is, by watching the lower self, right? My higher self is quite entertained by watching the personality of Dr. Chris. Sometimes I look at him in a video and I go, what a strange little man. What an odd person he is. What an awkward interpreter of truth his words are. Quite entertaining. Now, to bring heaven to earth doesn't mean paving our streets with gold down here. It means for you to bring the very best of who you are to life here in this moment. It is about you loving and accepting yourself just as the Creator has made you. And it's about you remembering every single day when you wake up, you are not your past. You're not even any current condition, whether you like it or not. You're not even your personality. You know what you are? You are a light that has traveled from the outer edges of the universe to land on this blue marble inside a human body so that spirit can feel what it's like to experience individuality and shape and form and time and space. So contrary to what the poet said, we are not trapped inside these dying animal bodies. We are the light that illuminates them. We are the consciousness that flows through them. We are the genius who's come to earth with the ideas to save humanity. We are all sort of in between right now, what once was and what's going to be in this pandemic. So let me ask you a question. You ever feel what it's like to be in between, in that space where you're lodged between vision and action, between spirit and human, between idea and manifestation? It doesn't feel very good, does it? In Christianity, they call this place purgatory. It's somewhere between heaven and hell. It's sort of a waiting room where your fate is determined later by some unknown panel, I guess. I don't know. Of course, no physical location exists, but sometimes it feels like when you're in that in-between space, it is a horrible experience. Because you know you can't go back to what once was, but you're still trying to muster the courage to figure out and go forward into what's next. And when you're there, you're just like everybody else. All you want to do is hurry and get out of it. You want all this to be over. I want it all to be over. But here's the thing. The in-between heaven and hell, who you have been, who you're going to be, viewed a little bit differently, can be the most fertile ground that life can offer you if you just stay present to the invitation that the in-between is bringing to you. When most of us enter into the in-between, we have a singular goal: run. We want it to be out. We want to get to the other side of it. We want to know what's going to happen next for us, because not knowing what's going to happen next sucks. But what if instead of hurrying to move on, to get out of where you are, what if instead of hustling and forcing and pushing and grasping your way out, you just allowed yourself to simply be who you are, where you are, feeling the feelings? What if you just allowed yourself to be present in the in-between and to spend some time to honor how you got there and to grieve the parts of you that you know you're going to have to leave behind when you leave there? You see, just like visionaries and practical people, the in-between is neither good nor bad. You know what it is? It's actually a creative womb where the newness in you that's waiting to be born gathers the strength necessary to make its entrance into the world. It's the birthplace of your best ideas. It's the new you coming to life. It's heaven being born on earth. I hope in being here today, I've offered you a new perspective on your place in life. I hope in listening to this lesson that you find greater courage to be yourself and to be all of it unedited. That's what we're here to do for each other, you know. That's what my friend Evadine did for me. She brought me her light. She brought me her joy. She brought me her artist mind and her artist heart. And I will really miss her. Thanks for indulging me as I share my loss. And so ends the lesson. Somebody said that life is a dance with the divine. And sometimes you get to lead, and sometimes you get to follow. This is the time to follow. In our meditation time together, we close our eyes, we stop activity, we turn inward to listen and to follow.
Spirit meets me there. Spirit meets me there.
When I was a young man, there were many nights where I felt lonely, wanting desperately to meet somebody, someone, or some people who could see me, who could love me, who I could spend my time with and share my life with. When I was a young man, I thought that love was outside of me, that it could be found in the world, and I felt lonely because I hadn't found it. When I grew and I matured spiritually, I recognized that love wasn't outside of me. It was an inner light waiting for my arrival and my return. Spirit meets me there. And so instead of looking outward, I started to look inward. And I found the very thing I couldn't find out there. The love and acceptance that I wanted other people to give me, I had to give myself. And what I found inside my own heart was a love that has no condition. What I found as I looked inside myself was not a body filled with bone and bloods, but was a spirit, a light, a beauty, an essence, a love. You have it in you. It lives in all of us. If you will quiet your monkey mind and the chatter of the world that tells you you're not good enough, if you just be still, you can feel it. You can hear it. Be still. Don't be tricked or fooled by outer appearances. Don't judge your worth by the conditions that are present in your life or by anyone else's opinion. You are the light of God. You are the wealth, the joy, and the beauty of the universe making its entrance as the unique individual that only you can be. And that, my friends, is worth celebrating every day. And so it is.
Stillness I find.
We close our service as we always do with this little affirmation and prayer. And if your affirmation is like mine, and I'm willing to bet it is, it says this. Say it with me. That which is holy and that which is human meet together in my soul. Let's know this together. We are not human beings living in a human world on a physical planet, put here to find our own way through and suffer through the consequences. We are the light of life. We are divine spiritual beings who have come here filled with talent and filled with joy and filled with light and love. We have come here to bring heaven to earth, to bring the very best of all that we are to this world, so that we can be healers of the world, so that we can be a blessing, so that we can be one of the solutions to the world's problems, not a problem. Remember who you are this week. You are a hybrid version of spirit experiencing and expressing itself as a human being. For remember your divinity. Never forget it. It is your higher self experiencing you. And it's all really, really good. And so it is. Join us again next week right here, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss it because it's another really wonderful lesson. And I think Maylene's coming back too next week. Until then, CSL, stay well, be safe.
Thank you for watching, and thanks for supporting CSL. If you'd like to know more about us, check us out on our website or social media. Blessings.